Assalamu alaikum brothers and sisters, welcome back to the Sapiens Thoughts video series. In this episode we're going to be looking at consumerism, how it links to nihilism and why it's such a big problem. Now let's go back a moment to the whole idea of the Enlightenment philosophers and thinkers. The idea that our objective is worldly progress. We have to create paradise on earth. Now this idea obviously, has to result in something. For us to attain a paradise on earth, we saw how the consumerist ideology, the consumerism as a way of life was necessary to implement, because this is now the system which is going to lead to what they think is going to lead to prosperity and is going to lead to this idea of a utopia, a worldly utopia. Now, I think it's important to define what we mean, or the difference between consumerism and materialism as a way of life. They're used interchangeably sometimes, but there is a slight difference, as noted by Tim Kassa in The High Price of Materialism. The materialism as a way of life is an idea which is that we as human beings, we find value through our material possessions and our acquisition of the material goods. Value is attached to this. This is materialism as a way of life. Consumerism is now, if you like, us acting upon this ideology or this way of looking at things. So we go out and we consume, and we believe consuming material goods and more products and all of these things is going to lead to well-being and happiness, and it's going to lead to us finding value and meaning. Now, how does consumerism or materialism as a way of life link to nihilism? Well, I'm sure you guys can connect the dots, and if you want, take a moment, pause the video, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, what you guys think the link is between nihilism and consumerism. So if you've done that, one of the links I want to share with you here is, and it's a very simple logical point, and that is that when one finds themselves in a state of meaninglessness, they realize life has no meaning, what am I here for, what is it all about, and they can't find answers, the first place humans are going to turn to is the material world. And on top of that, if the consumerist ideology and mindset and is being pushed to us and promoted to us everywhere, well then naturally we're going to hearken towards it. Because that propaganda is there, and it's been there for a very long time, that buying this, attaining this, having this is going to lead to happiness, is going to lead to well-being, although there's no direct correlation, as we will see in a moment. But this is what's going to lead to happiness. This is what's going to lead to prosperity. When we're being bombarded with these messages, especially a human being that can't find meaning in their life, finds themselves in nihilism, well then naturally they're going to incline towards this. And on a level, superficially, when human beings acquire things and buy things, especially if there's things are in fashion, if this atmosphere has been created, of products that, that have been given this sort of ephemeral value, which we believe that they have value, and people are buying it, and there's social consensus on this, and everyone's inclining towards these products, which somehow in some way gives these products value. That when we buy these things and we feel like we're a part of that group now, that elite group that has a particular product or, has acquired something, it's going to lead to a temporary sense of fulfillment and happiness. But that runs out very quickly, because it's very ephemeral in nature, this type of happiness. You buy something, and you've probably experienced this yourself. We buy a product, we are aspiring to buy something. We spend months, maybe years saving for that thing. We buy that thing. We enjoy it for a few weeks, a few days, and then after that, it's just another product, it's just another thing. Then we're just not finding that satisfaction in it anymore, that happiness. We may live through others now. We may get other people to come and enjoy the thing that we have. So when they enjoy it for the first time, we live vicariously through them now, and they experience this. Or we may aspire to buy something else now, and we go and search for another, thing that we think is going to bring happiness to us, but it doesn't. So nihilism and consumerism, there is that one link there. And the consumer mindset, if you are someone that has taken materialism as a way of life, well then you're more prone to fall into types of nihilism, because all you're focusing on is the material ephemeral world, which at bottom is meaningless. It's not going to give you value. It's not going to define you in any substantial way. So it's going to open you up to nihilism. So it swings, the door swings both ways. That being said, what are the origins of consumerism? What's very interesting is that the origins of consumerism can be traced back to also the time of the Enlightenment. In 1732, for example, a an author, a physician, I believe, named Bernard Mandeville. He wrote a book called The Fable of the Bees, and this was a very interesting tract. What he essentially tried to do was redefine virtue in his book, which at the time was understood, as someone virtuous was someone that was godly, someone that was, lived a very simple life, that wasn't engaged in vanity or, buying all of these things, was someone that was, you would call a minimalist, someone that was focused on God in the spiritual life as opposed to the material life. And what Mandeville tried to do was turn this around and suggest, no, a virtuous person is someone who really engages their desires and goes and fulfills their material desires, goes and engages in consumerism. Why? His reasoning was because the more you buy, you are facilitating for the economy to increase. And as the economy increases, in the long term, you are now bringing more money into the country, which leads to a safer country, leads to a more prosperous country. And then there's excess money to put into, social projects, injecting money into hospitals and care and all of these types of things. So it was a very interesting idea, which was challenged by many philosophers and some other thinkers like Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations. Although he didn't disagree with Mandeville's overall conclusion or reasoning, what he did disagree with was specifically on consumption. What should be consumed to lead to this ultimate goal? What is it that we should be consuming? Because according to Mandeville, it was just ridiculous, silly, pointless things, basically, like mirrors, hats, certain items of clothing, and pottery, certain brand names, and all of these types of things. He just wanted you to buy whatever, and fulfill your desires. Go and continuously buy and just gain as much as you can, because at the end of the day, it's good because it increases the economy, it brings more money in, which will lead to good overall. But Adam Smith tried to refine this, and he said, he proposed, we should be thinking of, let's make the things that we consume more substantial and worthwhile and meaningful. And he proposed things like education and the education system and so on and so forth. So it's a very interesting discussion that was taking place between these guys. Interestingly, during the same period, the Enlightenment was taking place. You could say it was a part of the whole process. But the idea is, consumerism, especially today, this unhealthy type of consumer society that we're a part of today, is directly linked to the conception of the idea of creating a paradise, a worldly utopia, And at the same time, what we're being told is that this is what's going to lead to happiness, well-being. This is the idea that's being pushed, which is not the case. So at the end of the day, it's not about individual well-being. Although that's what's suggested and that's what we learn, it's about money at the end of the day. It's all about money, power, and control at the end of the day. So there's a very interesting quote here which I think summarizes this whole consumerist system that we're a part of. It's by Lawrence Shamsi in his book, The Hunger for More. He states, consumption without excuses and without the need of justification. The beauty part was that it finessed the irksome question of values and of purpose. During the past decade, many people came to believe there didn't have to be a purpose. The mechanism didn't require it. Consumption kept the workers working, which kept the paychecks coming, which kept the people spending, which kept the investors investing, which meant there was more to consume. The system, properly understood, was independent of values and needed no philosophy to prop it up. It was a perfect circle, complete in itself and empty in the middle. Very profound quote, which I think summarizes everything. And by the way, the people that were sort of running or promoting this consumerist ideology over the past several decades, century or so, again, when you read what they had to say, you can start to pick up and tell that human well-being was not at the center of all of this. It wasn't about the individual. For example, there's a quote here by Victor Lebo, a retail analyst from the 1950s. He stated, "Our enormously productive economy demands that we make consumption our way of life, that we convert the buying and the use of goods into rituals, that we seek our spiritual satisfaction, our ego satisfaction in consumption. We need things consumed, burned up, replaced, and discarded at an ever accelerating rate." I mean, you can see how shocking this is, right? And what's really interesting, just as a side point, products are designed to break down. It's a part of the system so that we go and buy more. It's referred to as perceived and planned obsolescence. Some refer to it as a psychological type of obsolescence, where products are designed to have a certain shelf life, although they could be designed to last much longer. But they're designed to break down so that the consumer goes and buys another product. Take phones, for example. Most phone companies these days come out with a new phone every year. What's wrong with the old phone? It's fine, it's working. But it's interesting because some companies deliberately update softwares of the phone in a way that the phone slows down, starts to slow down. At the same time, they create this hype, this propaganda, this need for this new upgrade, the next version. And we just buy into this advertising, and we go and buy every year. And it becomes a social thing as well, where you become a part of this type of elite group where, everyone, in this group has the next phone, this year's phone. I need to get it as well to be a part of this group. So it's almost, if you like, you can see it as psychological warfare to a degree, where you're trying to create this consumer, because at the end of the day, it helps facilitate the system. No, it doesn't lead to the well-being of the individual. And it's been achieved. I mean, we are a part of a relentless consumer society today. For example, Stephen Mills, in Consumerism as a Way of Life, in his publication, he states consumerism is ubiquitous and ephemeral. It is arguably the religion of the late 20th century. Now, this is very, very interesting that he refers to it as the religion of the late 20th century. That highlights that it's rampant and it's widespread. It's not something that's been practiced by a small group of people. Now, hopefully this will give us a bit more of an insight into the history of consumerism and what it really is. In the next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to start looking into the problems of consumerism. Why is it really a bad thing? Fine. We're consumerists, we live in a consumerist society, we buy things. Okay, fine, there may not be a direct correlation between well-being and consumerism, but why is it really a big problem? And that's what we're going to explore in the next episode. Until then, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Why do you think this modern consumerism is a problem? Let me know your thoughts. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.